maybe in that period of you've just had your water, you've gone to say maybe the toilet, say maybe about more than even 5 or 6 times, yes. So if you're going very frequently, that could be another sign that you need to check your blood sugar. Another one is excessive hunger and thirst. I had mentioned during when I was talking about how diabetes comes about, is that your cells does not get the glucose it needs to be able to function properly. So if again what it means now to have hunger and cravings means that your cells are not getting the sugar that they need. So it keeps signaling your brain to keep getting that you've not fed, you need to eat. So you constantly have very, very high levels of cravings, and usually you'd crave for things like really starchy food or sugary foods that you're highly likely mostly used to. So that is another sign that you need to look out for. Amongst others is if you have too many episodes of night sweats, you're sweating a lot during the night. Some other very severe symptoms could be if you're constantly tired, if you're always tired. Another one could be your vision might also start being affected, and that would mean also your nerves have started being affected by the high concentration of sugar in your body or in your bloodstream. Another one could be your wounds. You have a wound that is healing very, very slowly, and it could even become septic, yes, or rather it can get an infection, and then you might need to actually look at that. Another one could be you have frequent tingling sensation on your palms or on your feet that just doesn't go away, and that could be a sign that you need to have your blood sugar tested. Another one very commonly could be that you have spots or unusual marks around especially your neck area or any other part of your body, really even your armpits, that has darkened, that was not there, maybe like a patch or something, a discoloration of your skin that is unusual. Now these are some of the things that we need to constantly check for, so that we make sure that our blood sugar is okay. So these are amongst the few signs and symptoms of diabetes that are very, very common. So I should mention first that early detection and screening can save you a lot in terms of preventing, again, the disease from advancing and now you starting to get very, very severe disease. And this means now, when your blood sugar is high and it's unmanaged for a very long period of time, it can cause, again, your organs, other organs or other parts of your body to be affected by that high blood sugar level. So I'd like to mention quickly some of the consequences of unmanaged diabetes, just so that you can note them down and to be also very, very cautious about them. So one very common one is we usually say it's called retinopathy. That is when now the nerves around your eyes have been damaged, and then that can lead to blindness or even blood vision and things like that. So those are some of the things we need to avoid when we are managing our blood sugar. The other one could be renal issues, and that one is very, very common. Usually long-term unmanaged diabetes can lead to kidney failure, and that one again is another very irreversible condition to have. So you need to also really check on that. Another one could be then you could develop numbness completely because of nerve damage, and that not only affects your eyes or your palms or your feet, it can even affect, again, your sexual function, especially for men. You find that constant unmanaged diabetes can lead to erectile dysfunction in them, and that is a very common thing that we usually see with especially men. Another one could be your heart vessels, so your blood vessels could also be affected, and that can lead to a very common condition that we call atherosclerosis. So you combine that condition again with your diet that is very high in fat, not only in just carbs, but also very high fat intake, especially from processed foods, then that can lead to conditions like stroke and heart attack, which is also another very, very common way that when you have diabetes now, you actually succumb to it. So these are some of the things that you need to look out for. Another one, you can develop skin conditions, or you can become very, very vulnerable to, say, infections, because again your immunity is very, very low when you have diabetes. So these are some of the things that you need to look out for. In the elderly, you find very commonly that they may develop dementia, which is another one that we need to look out for in our elderly or our fathers or our moms, that we need to take them to the hospital, especially when they start to develop such symptoms, yes, of forgetfulness or memory loss. Those are some of the things that we need to look out for. And one of the tests that we do now is to check their blood sugar. So I hope up to now we are together and we've learned a lot about how diabetes comes about, what to look out for, and why we need to test early and to manage early so that we can prevent very, very severe disease. I should also add that diabetes is actually very reversible. So the moment you're able to take care of your lifestyle and your diet, we're able to reverse that and you can be normal and lead a very normal life again, yes? So, but you also need to be very keen on early, screening. Anytime you see a medical camp, make sure you go, have your blood sugar tested. Not only that, even your blood pressure checked early, so that we're able to manage really, really fast and as soon as we can, so that you go back to your normal lifestyle. So now we need to get into the most important part now, which is lifestyle modification. We had mentioned that diabetes is a lifestyle disease. So if you're able to again take care of how you're living, how you're eating, and other activities that you're getting into, you can be able to prevent completely the onset of diabetes even when you're genetically predisposed. So these are some of the things that we can do. And the very first, most important one is diet modification, or taking up a very healthy diet. So what does this mean for you? So what does good dietary practices look like? So I'll mention the first one is, I just want you to note that down, that glucose is actually what we usually test for. There's a problem with how your insulin is functioning. And if insulin is not functioning well, it means your blood sugar is not going to be okay. So for us to be able to manage your blood sugar, we need to be on a low carbohydrate diet, or a diet that is low in starchy foods that we're having. So what are some of these carbs that we're having? This is typically things like bread, things like chapatis that we're having, ugali, rice, porridge even. Foods like that now are the ones that we need to adjust in our diet. So when we talk about going on a low carb diet, what this means is, if you're going to measure, this would mean that you're having less than 200 grams of total carbs in your day. That is per day. So if today, if you count 200 grams of carbohydrate, that would mean if you're having ugali, it's about maybe a fist size. If you're going to have rice, maybe for dinner, you're going to have maybe a cupful, a small cupful. If you're going to have breakfast today, you're going to have maybe a cup of oats, or maybe like about 2 slices of bread and things like that. That is what we mean. So if you go on a low carb diet, it would also really help you to manage your weight. One, if you're obese or if you're overweight, because then again, you know how our bodies usually process sugar is that our bodies does not know how to excrete sugar. It's not like protein that is going to be excreted. No, our bodies convert excess sugar into fat and it's stored. So that is how you find that now you're gaining a lot of weight. So in order for us to promote weight loss and to manage our blood sugar, we need to go on a low carb diet. So I hope that's clear. The other thing that we can do, we don't just have any type of carbohydrate. It matters so much the type of carb that we're having. So we usually consider complex carbohydrates. So what are complex carbs? These are carbohydrates that really are not processed at all, or they're very minimally processed. So a good example of a complex carb would be, instead of having white rice, which is actually processed, you can have brown rice instead. If you're going to have bread, you're not going to have white bread or even the brown bread that we buy from the market or from the supermarket. You're going to look for a whole grain type of bread. If you're going to have something like pasta or spaghetti, you're not going to get the regular white one or even noodles. You're going to look for a whole grain spaghetti. You see, the difference is very, very big, and this means even when you're having ugali, let's say ugali, because it's very common and it's a staple in here in our country. So that means you're not going to have, say, the sifted maize meal type of ugali. You're going to use not the brown one, but the one in the kisiagi, the one that we mill. Why? Because it's minimally processed, meaning the husk that usually is on the maize is just broken down. So the fiber is still there, but it's broken down. Same for brown rice, same for ngano, that is brown or brown wheat, say for example, or whole grain wheat. You're going to have oats, you're going to have millets or porridge. Those are some of the things that are a whole grain. Yes. Other foods that you can consider also as complex carbs are things like beans, lentils, peas, for example, French beans. All those ones are not processed whatsoever. And as much as they're going to give you a little bit of protein, they are also very, very starchy. So you have to consider them. But the good thing is that they're giving you a lot more fiber than usual. Yes. So another category of complex carbs is now vegetables and fruits, which are also very important to have in your diet. I should mention that fiber is very, very key in managing your blood sugar because it slows down the rate at which your body is absorbing this sugar. So if you're diabetic, you'll find that you're not getting those sugar spikes every other time, which causes your insulin resistance to worsen or to become more severe. So you have very controlled, your body has a very controlled way of absorbing the blood sugar or the blood glucose that you have just consumed, which is so much better, honestly, for you. Another thing that I should mention that you should get on is a high fiber diet, and the foods that I've just talked about of the complex carbohydrates are from the high fiber diet also. So consider foods that are mostly whole and have a lot more vegetables. Vegetables will actually give you the fiber that you need, and even your fruits. So I'm sure on your plate, every single one of your meals, including breakfast, has some sort of fiber, either from greens or cabbage or lettuce that you would use to make a sandwich, or things like the peppers that you would use. All those things, they matter so much in your diet. So another very, very important thing to also talk about, again, is protein. So your diet also has to be adequate in protein. And I'm not talking about just the plant protein, things like beans and peas or lentils. No, I'm talking about the animal in the room, that is meat. I know usually when you're managing your blood sugar or just in general health, we're usually told to limit our meat intake. I'm here to tell you that you actually do need the protein in your diet to be able to regulate your blood sugar better. Why? Because proteins do not actually have any kind of sugar or the glucose that we're talking about. So if you're diabetic, I would encourage you to have moderate amount of meats. And I'm talking about, if it's, say, things like liver or red meat itself, or things like chicken and fish and eggs, I'll put them in the same category, are very important. So the reason we usually also tell you now to limit your red meat intake is because now if you're constantly eating a lot of red meat, it can lead to other issues, especially with uric acid. However, now with moderate intake and creating like a variety of these foods in your diet helps you to not overdo one or the other. So that's why we usually say it's very important for you to balance. Now this is why balance, now this is where balance comes in. If today you've had, say, nyama or something like maybe beef, tomorrow you will not have beef, tomorrow maybe you will have chicken, the other day you'll have fish, the other day you've made a curry of eggs. So things like that gives you variety. So it makes sure that if your diet is very diverse, you also don't overdo one thing, so you don't actually get a problem with one food, and you're still able to achieve what you need to achieve. Another thing that I should mention is that protein is very, very important in glycemic control. And that means that protein helps to lower glycemic index of foods that have high glycemic index. I'm going to talk about glycemic index next. So what do we mean by glycemic index? This is usually a measure of how whichever specific food that you're having raises or lowers your blood sugar. So there are different foods that have different marks of how high your sugar will be after you consume them, basically. So when we're talking about foods that are very high in fiber, that are mostly whole, you'll find that this fiber, since they're releasing sugar very slowly, they'll have a very low glycemic index. Foods that are processed, anything really that is processed, will have a very high glycemic index because there's nothing holding back the sugar. You get? So the sugar is just absorbed into your bloodstream, is constantly going to elevate your blood sugar. So protein usually is very, very important because it helps to lower the glycemic index of foods that tentatively have very high sugar. So it would help to pair your foods like this. If you're going to have, say, ugali, something as simple as ugali, and you've not been able to get the brown ugali or even the kisiagi ugali, the one that is milled, You can eat the sifted maize meal, but it matters so much what you pair that sifted maize meal with. So if you're eating ugali that is white, you pair that with meat, you will have a similar, almost similar or even a lower effect than if you had just the white ugali alone. You see, things like that usually matter a lot in helping you to manage your blood sugar. So not only that, on our glycemic index, we also have different fruits that also have the same effect on your blood sugar. So different fruits also have different glycemic indexes. So you'll find that there are other fruits that we restrict for you, even while we're asking you to have fruits often and you're told to eat a fruit maybe every day. It matters also which type of fruit you're having, because then we also need to control your blood sugar. So you can still get really good nutrients, same nutrients that you'd get, say for example, from a banana in an avocado, but the avocado will not raise your blood sugar as high as the banana will. So some of those things are things that we usually have to discuss with you even while you come to the clinic now, to be able to manage or to learn how to manage your sugar at home now with your diet. So this is some of the things that are very key to consider. Another thing that we should mention is having a diet that is low in saturated fat and in trans fat especially. So what are we talking about when you're talking about saturated fats and trans fats? Now, the problem usually with these fats are, if your blood sugar is high, and then again you're having a diet that is very high in processed foods and meats, packaged meats, things like sausages, smokies, bacon. If you're having very large quantities of these foods, then you're going to be getting a lot of fat or cholesterol in your bloodstream. If your bloodstream is very full of cholesterol, again, it combines again with that sugar, it forms plaques in your bloodstream, and that causes you to do what? That may cause even your blood pressure to be high or to develop a condition that is called atherosclerosis. And this condition again causes you or increases your risk of things like a stroke and heart attack and other conditions that come about because of high blood pressure. So this is why it's very key also to consume fats and oils from usually plant-based foods that will also lower your risk of high blood cholesterol. So that is why that is very, very important to note down also. Other things that you can also do just normally to be able to take care of your health better and your diet better is to read nutrition labels. Most of us don't actually read labels on the foods that we buy. Say maybe if you find bread or if you actually go, but let's use bread as an example. You've gone to buy bread, you found one that is whole grain, another one is brown bread, and another one that is white. It's important to look at the labels well to see which one is actually truly whole and which one actually has more sodium, so that you can avoid those ones. Which one has more carbohydrate or which one has more fiber. That is actually what now you're looking for. If say maybe the carbohydrate is the same, but fiber would be different in all those three types of bread. So that is why it's very key for you to read labels, so that you make very informed choices that are pro-health, that are also going to promote your health and help you manage your sugar so much better. Now, another thing that you can also look out for is making better choices, making better food preparation choices, or how you're going to cook your food basically. So it's better to avoid deep frying your foods constantly, because then that would also really help you to limit the amount of fat that you're consuming. Fat contributes to energy or to calories in total in your diet. So if your diet again is very fatty, you're constantly deep frying your foods every other time, you'd find that you pose yourself a risk of being overweight or being obese, because you're over consuming the amount of energy or calories that you should take at the end of the day. So it's good to try and adopt other cooking methods, say maybe things like stewing with just a little bit of vegetable oil, for example. Or maybe you can adopt using things like olive oil or avocado oil or nuts oil to prepare your foods. Don't deep fry them. Even if you're talking about having olive oil, don't deep fry your foods again with olive oil, because it's healthier, yeah? You get the gist. So something like that will also help you so much to limit the amount of fat that you consume. So steam your foods, lightly fry them on a pan. You can also grill them if you'd like. You can bake your foods also. Things like that will also help to limit the amount of fat, total fats that you're consuming. Another thing that you can do is to choose better meal times. Remember, especially for people who are managing diabetes, it matters what time you're consuming your foods, especially when it's usually for dinner time. So you'd find that if you're constantly eating food, and especially ones that are starchy, later on into the night, your sugars, by the time you're measuring in the morning, are going to be very, very high. So it's so much better for you to eat much earlier than you're going to bed, because that also helps you to utilize that sugar much better. And by the time you're going to bed, at least you don't have so much that is still being digested, or it's still being absorbed. So then you'd find that you have much better readings in the morning, or much better sugar control. So it's very important for us to note those things down. So we usually say you space your time. By the time you're done with your dinner and by the time you're going to bed, usually give yourself time. About 2 hours is adequate. More if you would like, but 2 hours is enough for you. Another one we usually say is just balance your meals. Even while we're saying you eat now complex carbs, or you eat now your meats, or you eat your chicken, don't overquote me. I'm not trying to say now you have a whole chicken by yourself. That's not what we're talking about. Or maybe you have now a whole sinia of say ugali because it's brown. No. Remember, portion control really matters. The amount of carbs that you also have will also determine how well you're able to manage your blood sugar. Not only that, but also how you're going to manage even your weight, even while you're managing your weight. So those are some of the things that we usually say. Balance your meals, eat less carbs, have a lot more vegetables or greens, for example, that are non-starchy. We call them non-starchy vegetables on your plate, and have enough amount of protein. So if you limit your protein to maybe 150 grams of chicken, maybe, or 150 grams of fish, if you're going to have nyama, about maybe a quarter size, something like that usually is enough per meal. Again, it's very important for you to note down how much protein you need to have, or how much carbohydrate you need to have, so that you may not overdo. It's very important for you to be able to note that down. So that is why it's very important for you to see a nutritionist or dietitian to be able to guide you appropriately, and to determine which plan is also really good for you. Remember, these plans are usually very individualistic. What works for one person may not essentially work for you. So make sure that you know what works for you, and then now you stick to the plan and you're going to be okay. So not only is diet important, there's also generally other things now in your lifestyle that you also need to adjust, so that you also are able to have much better results in your glycemic control. One of them is exercise. That is very key, and it cannot go ignored. We cannot ignore it. So usually what is recommended is to move naturally. We know that gym is not for everyone, jogging is not for everyone, but at least everyone can walk. That is a very simple thing that you can do to stay active. Usually we say if at the end of the week you aim for about 150 minutes total of just physical activity that you have walked, it's very intense also, that you just a brisk walk, but it's maybe you can elongate the distance at which you walk, or maybe you can walk faster. Anything to really intensify the kind of exercise that you have taken up usually helps a lot in managing your blood sugar. We have to mention that the more you put your muscles to work, the more they use that extra sugar in your bloodstream. So if you compare maybe someone who does not work out and you who is working out, and you both of you are managing diabetes, you'll find that you who's working out has a much better blood sugar control than the other person who's eating right, just like you are, but is not exercising. So exercise is very, very key. Another thing that you can do is stress management. Remember, having a very good mental health, being in very good mental health also really helps in managing your blood sugar. Stress also triggers your sugar to be high, even your blood pressure. So you'd find that if you're constantly unwell, and you're not able to have very healthy ways of managing your stress, you might end up taking up very unhealthy ways of managing, like the people who overfeed, for example, or who even starve themselves. Some of those things are not very healthy. Or you partake maybe even alcohol. Some of these things will affect your blood sugar. So that wouldn't be very healthy. It would be much better for you to seek help from someone, maybe from a close friend, or even from a professional, like maybe a psychologist or a counselor, to be able to help you de-stress and be able to help you now have much better blood sugar control at the end of the day. It's very important for us also to form very good relationships with people. Make sure you're surrounded by people who actually support you and make you feel good, because that is also how we're able to manage our stress. Another one is completely ceasing alcohol intake and smoking. Those two things usually also cause your blood sugar to be higher, and even not only that, but it can also cause other health problems. Remember, when you have diabetes, your immunity is not as strong as say maybe a normal healthy person, so you need to cease anything that's going to cause you to have more problems. Yes, so it's much better for you to choose healthier ways of passing time or to socialize with others. You can hike, you can take up a sport, you can you can picnic, you can do healthy things, yes, that promote your health. Those are some of the things minimally that usually help so much to managing your blood sugar, on top of also adhering to your medication. It's very important for you, even while you are doing all those things to modify your diet and modify your lifestyle, it's very key also to adhere to your medication. If, say for example, yours is insulin therapy, or yours is taking maybe the daily tabs that you usually take, make sure you adhere to them. Make sure you go for your review every month. It's not just you just go to maybe the pharmacy to refill your medication. No, it's important for you to also have yourself reviewed by a specialist or by your doctor who monitors you, who knows your history, so that you see how well you're doing, how well you're progressing. Most of the time we forget that this condition is chronic. It's not a lifetime condition. So that is why it's very important for you to get reviews. Whether it's monthly or after 3 months, that will be decided by your specialist or by your doctor. So these are some of the things that we need to do to be able to manage our blood sugar or to manage diabetes well. Not just that, even just for a healthy person, if you'd like to also prevent this condition from coming up, it's very important for you to take up the same management that we have been able to discuss today. So this is my time. So thank you so much for listening. I'm going to be taking in any questions that we have, and then we'll call it a nice day. So if we have any questions, we can take them. Okay, so I'm seeing there's no questions to take up, so we'll use this time just to mention the kind of services that we have and when we expect to have another session, because I know this is something that you all would like to hear about and to learn about. It's very important for us to educate ourselves. So we'll be keeping you posted on new live sessions that we have, whether it's monthly, whether it's quarterly, we'll be able to let you know. So follow us on all our social media sites. It is Instagram, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube. So drop your questions in there, we'll be able to address them. So I'd like to mention that Bristol Park has many branches. So if you would like to see a nutritionist or a specialist to help you manage better your condition, whichever one, we have 5 branches in total in Kenya. So we have 3 branches in Nairobi area. So we have 3 branches in Nairobi area. We have Fedha, we have Tasia, we have Utawala branch, and then we have Machakos branch. We have a branch in Machakos and we have one in Kitengela. So whichever one that is closest to you, karibu sana, and then we'll be able to serve you really, really well. We have a wide array of specialist clinics, including a physician, a nutritionist, we have a pediatrician, we have oncology, we have a wide array of specialist services for you. So you should come by, and then we'll be able to help you manage really, really well. We also have inpatient services and outpatient. So if you do come and you need to, in maternity services, say lazima tu ukwe mgonjwa, you can choose us to also come and we help you deliver your little bundle of joy. All right, so we have a question. Someone has asked a question here, so we'll get back to the questions and we'll address them as they come along. So someone asked, can watermelon manage diabetes? And Annette Kyoko has asked if watermelons are healthy when you're managing diabetes. So essentially, this usually is a very controversial a question. I would say, for myself, I'd say yes and no. Why? Because watermelon first is considered a fruit that has a very high glycemic index. So for fruits again that are higher up on that index, usually we limit them. We don't necessarily avoid them, but we limit them. By that we mean, if say for example you are going to have watermelon today, and that is the only fruit that again is available for you, so you would have it, yes. However, you would have about a very small slice of it that would count as a serving. So you'd have that one slice only. So instead of having, say, maybe a really big piece or a couple of slices, you'd only have just one. So we usually say that because sometimes the fruits that we usually say are much better for managing our blood sugar, some of them are not as available to us. And we also have to consider availability, affordability, and accessibility of the foods that we are having. So I know watermelon is very common for us. You can have it, yes, but with limits, yes. So you limit the amount, and you only have a watermelon that day. I should mention, especially for fruits, that there is a wide array of fruits, but what we usually avoid completely is having a whole, I'd say a bowl full of mixed fruits. So we usually call it like, the fruit salads that we usually have. That is what we do not encourage completely, because that can cause, again, your blood sugar to be elevated. Choose a fruit a day, just one serving of one fruit a day. That is much better. That will help you be able to achieve glycemic control so much better. So we'll see another question if we have one. Someone asked, is herbal salt healthy? I would say essentially maybe yes, maybe no, and it depends on you as an individual. Herbal salt has more nutrients. Yes, I would say has more nutrients, maybe has more if it's iron or other nutrients really that regular sea salt does not have, or regular salt does not have. Yes, so that is why we usually say it's healthy. However, if you are managing, say, maybe something like hypertension, or if you're managing, say, even renal disease, and or if you have chronic renal failure, and you have most of these salts, whether or not they're healthy, they will affect your how you're managing your kidneys or your kidney health. Because essentially salt at the end, at baseline, whether it's herbal, it's Himalayan, it's sea salt, it's table salt, it's sodium. So if your diet is supposed to be restricted in sodium, then having sea salt is not going to be good for you, no matter if it's herbal. So this is another thing that you need to again consult with your dietitian or your doctor to be able to determine if this salt that you want to take is good for you or is healthy for you. So let's see whether we have another question. Someone asked which fruits are best for children. This was anonymous. So I'd say all fruits. Honestly, all fruits are good for us, whether we're children or we are grown-ups or we're old. All fruits are healthy for us, and especially for children. So fruits usually give us an array of nutrients, not only fiber, they give us vitamin C. You'd find some fruits have more vitamin C, some of them have vitamin A mostly, some of them have really good antioxidants that are really healthy for us in general. So I'd say any fruit, really, all fruits are healthy for children. But we usually say you focus more, only to focus more, not just these ones are the best or or anything. We just focus more on the ones that have vitamin A, and especially for babies who are from 6 months upward to 1 year plus, who are very young, we focus on the yellow fruits because they'll give your babies more vitamin A that they actually need to build a really strong immune system. So not only that, even citrus fruit, things like oranges, tangerines are also really good for you because they give you vitamin C, which is also really good for you to absorb your iron and things like that. Yes. However, all fruits are healthy for our children. I will take another question. Colin Stamba is asking, what is whole food or whole meal? So what this means is a food that has not been altered in any way. So it's most, when we say it's whole, it's not been processed, it's not been broken down. There's nothing of it that has been removed in the processing of it. Yes. So I'd say a whole food would be something like, I'd say sweet potato, you see? So, or even something like ndoma. The only thing that tumefanya is we've taken it from the ground, we've probably just washed it. The only thing we've removed is dirt from it. We've boiled it and prepared it. So that is a whole food. So say something else, something like beans, especially when we harvest them here, we don't polish them. Vile tu zimetoka kwa shamba, hivyo hivyo zinatengenezwa, we remove the husk, the comb of it, then we prepare them. So that is what we call whole foods. Fruits are whole. Vegetables that we collect from the shamba are whole. That is what we mean by whole food. Whole meal, essentially, that is usually a term that we use, especially when we're talking about wheat products. So whole meal essentially is anything that is made from wheat that haijatolewa the husk. It's still brown, yes? And it's very coarse. That is what we mean by whole meal. So when we talk about whole meal bread, it's bread that has been made from wheat that has not been over processed, that has just been broken down. Whole meal ugali is ugali that